In this video, we review the concept of slope. Well, what is slope? Slope is just the rate of vertical change to horizontal change. Remember, vertical is up and down, and so vertical is up and down. Horizontal is side to side, side to side. So we express slope as a ratio, which is just a fancy word for fraction. And how we find slope, it is the easiest way to think about it is just the rise over run. Rise is up and down, and the run is side to side. Sometimes it will look like a fraction. Sometimes the fraction will reduce to a whole number. We can also think of slope as the change in y over the change in x, delta y over delta x. Types of slope. There are 4 different types of slope. And there is a link here to a video called Slope Dude. If you've never seen that, you ought to check it out. It's pretty fantastic. So positive slope, and when we're talking about slope, we're talking about graphing a line on a coordinate grid and we're talking about a straight line, not a parabola or anything like that. We're just dealing with straight lines. And if we look at the line, and from left to right, if it goes up, it's positive. From left to right, if it goes down, then it is negative. From left to right, if it is straight across, then we say that's zero slope. And lastly, if from left to right, if there actually is no rise, or if it doesn't go up or down, it goes straight up and down. I'm sorry, if it doesn't have a slant to it, if it goes straight up and down, if it's vertical like a flagpole, then it's undefined. All right. So the easiest thing to do in these examples here says find the slope given between each, or the slope between each given pair of points. Okay. If we have a graph and we have points that are actually on a graph, the easiest thing to do is just to count. I mean, that's the easiest thing to do. So let's take a look. Number 1, it says points C and D. So here is C and here is D. Always start with the bottom point. Always start with the point that's on the bottom and count up. So if I start at D and I'm going to go up to the line where C is on, that C's on, I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3. So my rise is 3. Now remember, I said we're going to express this as a fraction, and it's how far it goes up over how far it goes over. So if I go from D to C, if I'm going to count how far over it goes, so that's just 1, 2, 3. Okay. So that's rise over run. It's 3 up and it's 3 over. Now what I need to do is figure out, okay, is that positive or negative? Well, like we said a second ago, if we go from left to right and it goes down, then it's negative. So in this case, from C to D, we're going from left to right and we are going down. So this is actually going to be a negative slope. And I said sometimes it's going to be a fraction, but if your fraction will reduce to a whole number, then we want to go ahead and do that. So negative 3 over 3 reduces to, well, let's see, 3 divided by 3 is 1, so it's negative 1. So the slope of the points C and D is negative 1. How about B and C? Well, let's see. Here's B and here's C. Always start with the bottom number and count up. So 1, 2, 3. I'm going to go up 3 to the line where C is. So my rise is 3. And then we count over 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's going to be over 6. So 3 up and over 6, that reduces to 1/2. And I know it's positive 1/2 because going from left to right, I would have to go up. So that's going to be a positive slope. E and F. Okay. So we're going to start with the bottom number, or the bottom point, and we're going to count up. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 13. So my rise is 13. But right away, I see that we may have a problem with the run. It doesn't look like it. Point E and point F are on the same vertical line. So there is no run. I go 0 over to get from one point to the other. So if I go over 0, my run is 0. And this right here, this should send up a red flag for everybody. You cannot have a 0 in the denominator. That's a no-no in math. We can't do that. So what that means then is that because it's a vertical line, it is an undefined slope. And so right now that says 0. To make it undefined, we write a 0 and then we put a slash through it. And that tells us that that's undefined. And that's how we write undefined in math. It's a 0 with a slash through it. Example number 4, A and E. A and E. Okay, so A and E. So we would say, okay, E is on this line right here. I thought, though, that was horizontal, but it turns out they're not. So we want to start at the bottom point and we go up. We're only going up one line on our grid to get from A to E. So our rise is 1. And our run is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12. So 1 over 12. That's not going to reduce to a whole number or anything, so we just leave it as a fraction. And from left to right, we're going to go up, so that's a positive slope. B and D. Okay, so B and D. Looks like B and D are both on the same horizontal line, so it looks like there's 0 rise. So I'm going to put that up there in my numerator, 0 for the rise. And it looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 for the run. Okay. Well, it looks like because there's a 0 in the numerator, 0 divided by anything is just 0. So that's a 0 slope, and 0 slope always means horizontal line. Horizontal line. And a second ago, when we had a undefined slope, that is always vertical. Those are two things that you guys should put into your memory banks. Vertical lines are undefined slope. Horizontal lines are 0 slope. That will save you a lot of work in the future. Last one, B and F. B and F. Okay, so F is on the bottom, so I want to go up. I'm going to count up to this line right there. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So my rise is 6. And my run is, I'm going to go from B. So B is right here. I'm going to count over to that line right there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So I counted 11 over. Okay. So that's my slope is 6 over 11. However, I have to determine if it's positive, negative, undefined, or 0. Well, I know it's not undefined or 0 because there's definitely a slope here. But from left to right, looks like we're going down. So remember, if it's from left to right and it goes down, it's going to be a negative slope. So there we go. It's just negative 6 over 11. Okay, well, that's all fine and good if you've got a graph to look at. But what happens if you don't have a graph? What if you just have 2 points? And you're going to see this a lot in your homework sets and things like that. So it's important that you know how to find the slope between 2 points if you don't have a graph. And that's really easy. It's this formula right here. So what that is, remember earlier we said it's just delta y. It's the change in y over the change in x. Well, how you do that mathematically is you just take your 2 y values, subtract them, you take your 2 x values, and you subtract them, and you make a fraction out of it. And that's all we're going to do. So it might help to label our points x1, y1, x1, y1, x2, y2. So let's go ahead and do that first. Anytime we see 2 points, we should just get in the habit of doing that. So what might be easier is if I can zoom in a little bit. There we go. So this is x1, y1, and this is x2, y2. Go ahead and do that over here too. x1, y1, x2, and y2. So now all you have to do is just plug those right into your formula and away you go. So slope is always lowercase m. And honestly, it doesn't matter which way you go. You can do x1 minus x2 or x2 minus x1. But to keep it consistent, we'll start with the 2's first and then we'll go to the 1. So it'd be 4. I'm sorry. No, got to be y's, huh? So 8. Y's go on top. 8 minus 3. And then 4 minus. Now remember, you're not subtracting the number, you're subtracting the value, and the value is -2. So 4 minus -2, and we know that that is 8 minus 3 is 5. And then 4 minus a -2, when you subtract a negative, that always turns into a positive. So that's really 4 plus 2. So finally we have 5 over 6. So that's our slope. Number 2, we're going to do the exact same thing. So we say slope is equal to So we start with the y2, which is 2 minus -6. And then we have -5 minus 7. All right. So 2 minus -6, remember that's like adding. So 2 plus 6 is 8. -5 minus 7 is -12. This will reduce. Okay, the number 4 will go into both 8 and 12, and it's still negative. So 4 goes into 8 2 times, and it goes into 12 3 times. So the slope here is -2/3. So let's see, x1, y1, x2, y2. Now, of course, guys, you guys know if you get it, you can fast forward a little bit, go to the next section. If you're still a little fuzzy on it, just keep watching. x1, y1, x2. I am going to speed up just a little bit, though. So we got 2 minus 2, 5 minus 1. Remember, delta y over delta x. That's 0. Right away, I see a 0 in the numerator, so I know that's going to be a horizontal line. Doesn't matter what this bottom number is. So the slope is 0. What did we say a 0 slope is? Is it horizontal or vertical? If you said horizontal, you got it right. If I were to guess, I would say number 4 is probably going to be vertical, and I can see that it is right away. So let's take a look. All right, let's see. We're going to do the changes in y. So 5 minus 1. That's going to give me a 4 up top, but then I've got to do the x's on the bottom. So 2 minus 2. So that's 4, 0. Now remember, you cannot have a 0 on the bottom of a fraction. That is a math no-no. So that's going to be an undefined slope. What did we say undefined slopes are? If you said vertical, you got it. All right, last couple of examples. It says find the slope and type of slope. That just means positive, negative, horizontal, that sort of thing. Type slope of each equation by converting from standard form, ax plus by equals c, to slope intercept form. and that's the y equals mx plus b. Okay, so a real quick note. There are a couple of different forms of equations that you guys are going to run into. All of the equations that you're going to see in geometry, they're all of straight lines. Okay, well, line equations. They're all straight lines. They're not parabolas. That actually is not entirely accurate. Some of you guys in the pre-AP class may see some parabolas, but that's okay. But when you see this form right here, ax plus by equals c, and the a, the b, and the c, those are all going to be constants, which means they're going to be numbers. That's standard form. Then if you look over here, this form, when you have y all by itself and then it equals mx plus b, that's the slope-intercept form. And that's the form that we like because that's the easiest one to work with. And as we move through this, you'll see why I say that. So what we want to do, when we see it in this form right here, the number in front of x, that's going to be your a term. That's your a term. The number in front of b, or I'm sorry, in front of y, that's your b term. And then c, let's see if yellow shows up. Kind of. That is your c term. So the first thing we want to do, if you see that, you want to go ahead and convert it into y equals mx plus b. So really all you're going to do is solve for y. So let's go back to blue, and let's take a look at that real quick. So the easiest thing to do, let's see, we're going to subtract 4x, and then that goes away, but we have to subtract 4x over here. Well, I can't subtract 4x from 28, so what that's going to leave me then is negative 4y is equal to negative 4x, or minus 4x, plus 28. Now I want to isolate y by itself, so in order to do that, I have to divide by this negative 4 to get rid of it. And if I divide this by negative 4, that means I have to divide everything over here by negative 4. Not just the x term, not just the 28, but both. Negative 4. I'm running out of room, so I'm going to move over to this other side right here. This cancels out, so that just leaves me with y. And that's going to be equal to negative 4 divided by negative 4. That actually cancels out too, but remember the x still stays there. So that's going to be x. And then 28 divided by 4 is negative 7. So that's my y equals mx plus b form. Okay. So the slope is always in front of the x term. This is your slope right there. That is always slope. But let me warn you on something here. This is slope. The slope is the number in front of the x. It never includes the x, and yet somehow some kids always want to say, oh, well, the slope is 4x or 7x or negative 2/3 x. No, it's not. It's just the number in front of the x. So in this case, I'm going to rewrite my equation, x minus 7. What number is in front of the x? Well, you're saying, Mr. Seymour, there is no number in front of the x. Sure there is. If there's no number in front of the x, we can always assume that it's a 1. We can always assume that. So slope, then, is equal to 1. It's always the number in front of x when you have y equals mx plus b, or it's called the slope-intercept form. So this type of slope, well, it's just positive. It's positive slope. All right, example number 5. All right, so we have 5x. All right, well, I'm sorry, example number 2. I don't know where I got 5. 5x plus 6y equals 18. So we want to convert this into y equals mx plus b form. So I need to get y on one side of the equation by itself, everything else over on the other side. So I'm going to subtract 5x. And that cancels that out. So what that leaves me then is 6y equals negative 5x plus 18. Now I have to divide by 6 to get rid of that 6 in front of the y. Divide by 6 here, divide by 6 there, and that's going to cancel that out. So that leaves me with y equals negative 5/6 x. 5/6 doesn't reduce, so we can just leave that as a fraction. 18 over 6 does reduce, though. 18 divided by 6 is equal to 3. All right, now remember, we said the slope is always, when it's in this form, and this is the reason why we want to get it into this form, because it's really easy to identify the slope. Okay, so y equals negative 5/6 plus 3. Well, what is the slope in this line right here? Take a second. Now remember, it's always the number in front of the x. It's the constant in front of the x. So slope is equal to negative 5/6. And that is a negative slope. Negative. Two more examples. Take a second and guess. Can you infer what type of examples they're going to be? We've had a positive, we've had a negative. What are the other two types of slope? That's right, horizontal and vertical. So let's see which ones are which. So notice we have a little bit different. What are we missing here in example number 3 in this box right here? We have a y term. We have a couple of constants. What are we missing? That's right, there's no x term. So we still want to get y by itself, though. So if we say y, we're going to add, well, okay, wait, hang on. Got ahead of myself. Plus 4. We got a plus 4 over here, too. When we do that, that cancels out. We've got y equals 12 and 4 is 16. Okay, so this is really important, guys. So turn your ears on here. We don't have an x term, right? We just have y equals 16. So if we don't have an x term, that means the line, if we were to graph this, it's never going to cross the x-axis. It never crosses the x-axis, so think about that. What's the only line that can never cross the x-axis? Remember, the x-axis is the one that goes side to side. Well, any line that's parallel to that will never touch it. So this line right here is parallel to the x-axis. So in fact, it's going to never touch the x-axis. The only axis that it touches is the y-axis. So this slope is 0. Okay, the slope is 0. And what this looks like is if we were to graph it, there's the y-axis, there's the x-axis. It's gonna be a horizontal line. I'm just gonna make it dashed. That may want to fill it in automatically for me. And it's going to cross the x-axis at 16. Horizontal. So that's a horizontal line, and it's going to cross the y-axis, the axis that goes up and down. It's going to cross that at 16, and it's horizontal. It's parallel to the x-axis, which runs left and right. So by now you've probably inferred that the last one's going to be vertical. I bet it will be. So let's see. We need to isolate this variable x. We always want to do that regardless if we have an x, y, or whatever. We always want to isolate it. But what do we notice that's missing? Just like in number 3, we were missing a y. Or I'm sorry, missing an x. Well, here in number 4, we're missing the y. But we still want to isolate our variable, though. So if we add 3 there, we add 3 here. Okay, so that goes away. So we've got 6x equals 18, divide by 6, divide by 6, and we have x equals 3. Well, a second ago, we said when we didn't have an x value, it never crossed the x axis. So if we don't have a y value, which axis do you think it's not going to cross? That's right, it's not going to cross the y axis. And the only way that it cannot cross the y axis is if it's straight up and down, if it's vertical. Now remember, the slope of a vertical line that's kind of ridiculous. The slope of a vertical line is undefined. Remember, undefined is a 0 with a slash through it. And let's go back up here and add, this is horizontal. So this would be vertical.